you guys don't have to stick around for the whole thing. I know everyone's going to stick around at the beginning, but there's Mr. Cedar online.
Hi, everybody.
So I'm going to call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. And first item of business will be consideration of the approval of the minutes from July 16th. Any comments or questions? Trustees?
I move approval of minutes.
Okay. Second. Any other discussion? All right. All in favor of approving the minutes? Say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Passes. All right. So we have our special guest, the board of the Boulder Library Foundation, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Chris Bars, who is the executive director, and he can speak about all the things he wants to talk about and the upcoming gala.
Thanks, Doug, and welcome Sylvia, our other double team player, along with Andy, who serves on both our boards. Good to be with you. I'm going to spend 5 minutes talking about a little bit of background, talking about Carnegie. I've been digging through and building a historic photo kind of presentation for our gala. So I'm just going to give you kind of highlights of what I've dug up about what the impact of philanthropy has been on Boulder Public Library. That'll be 5 minutes, and then Kitty's going to talk about what's on our kind of near and farther out horizon as a foundation. And then we're going to try to leave 5 minutes just for a little bit of organic Q&A. So this has been fun. So this little Carnegie project, a lot of you know this deep history, but starting with a reading room around Pearl Street in the late 1800s, when the population of Boulder is about 2,000 people, Boulder's public library has always been powered by philanthropy. Boulder's first librarian, Clara Savory, collected donations door to door to buy books. Andrew Carnegie funded our first library in 1906. Other donors helped the city fund Boulder Main Library, which opened in 1961. You know where that is, 9th and Canyon. CU English professor George Reynolds left money in his will to build Boulder's first library branch on Table Mesa in South Boulder in 1969. So by the time the Boulder Library Foundation was established, philanthropy was responsible for much of the library's founding and expansion. And so in the first decade, after the foundation came along in 1974, the situation was that, frustrated with the city's commingling of charitable and tax dollars, the Boulder Library Commission decided the time had come for a separate nonprofit organization to steward Boulder's philanthropic support for its library. They found a unique champion in Doris Haas, a New York transplant with a no-nonsense approach to identifying the library's unmet needs and soliciting donations to meet them. In its first decade, donors helped the foundation buy the library a grand piano, funded free Sunday afternoon concerts, and funded many of the programs and services that really became a lot of the programs and services that you see aspects of today. Then in the next decade, starting in 1984, continued city budget cuts caused the Boulder Library Foundation to organize a campaign for dedicated library funding. Sound familiar? It succeeded on the 1987 ballot. It provided for the glass and flagstone Arapahoe edition of the Boulder Main Library, opening of the Meadows Library, and a remodel of the Reynolds branch. The foundation also supported a new adult literacy program, Boulder Reads, and secured grants to bring computers into the library for the first time, making them free and accessible to all. Then in the next decade, we're up to 1994, the library became home to an oral history project with the support of many community members' gifts of time and treasure. The family of the project's first manager opened an endowment at the Boulder Library Foundation once Maria Rogers died, ensuring the project would continue to be staffed. The foundation continued its support for children's programs and arts and cultural programming in that decade. Now we're into this millennium. In 2004 through that next decade, the foundation continued its support for the Carnegie Library for local history with the help of a gift from the estate of George Bragg. I found a photo of him in a swimsuit. Thanks to strong performance in the stock market, the foundation's assets grew in that time from $1 million to more than $4 million, allowing earnings to fund concert and film series in the Canyon Theater, as well as other annual library programs like Summer of Discovery. Now we're up to the 5th decade, starting in 2014 to present. The library's first makerspace was established in a former maintenance office in 2016 with a $250,000 grant from the foundation. The library staff named it Building 61 because it was located in the original north wing of the Boulder Main Library, which was originally built in 1961. By 2022, city funding of the library had dwindled such that it was staffed at only 2/3 the level of 20 years prior. The foundation funded a Boulder Library Champions campaign to create a library district with its own property tax base and governance separate from the city. Voters approved the measure, as we all know, and in so doing, set the library on a sustainable financial footing. The Nobo Library, where we're sitting, became the library's first new branch in a generation to open just this summer, with the help of a capital campaign led by the foundation. A new branch, as you all know, is scheduled to open in Gun Barrel in 2025, and now the Boulder Library Foundation is in a position to partner with library patrons who want to fund innovation in the context of a thriving library system. So with that as a preamble, I'm going to turn it over to Kitty to talk about what's now and what's next.
Well, again, thank you all for having us. It was interesting, a year ago, Sharon and I joined the board, and before I knew it, I was vice president and then president. And the good news was that my partner in crime over here and I have raised a lot of money in this town. And I just, as a side note, want to say that when I came to Boulder in 1980, I met this man who eventually became my husband, and he and Melissa DeKeeper, my mother-in-law, and Doris Haas were good friends. And so if you have ever not met her, you should while she's still alive. She is even more of a pistol than my mother-in-law was. And that's saying a lot. So it just goes to show you we were lucky that she ran this thing for so long as a volunteer, because she did an amazing job. One of the things I realized, I have ran 2 different nonprofits, one here in Boulder as the Mental Health Foundation, and then I ran a national foundation for a sorority, where I traveled all over the United States and Canada and actually learned quite a bit about fundraising. And one of the things I recognized when I joined the foundation board was that it wasn't that we had done anything wrong or incorrectly. We just needed to create the foundation for the foundation. And so we have done that. And it's not because of any 1 or 2 people. It's because everybody around this board that was involved with the foundation helped with that effort. And every single thing that you can think of, between the committees, the way we handle accounting, the way we handle recruitment of new board members, everything has changed. And so you can imagine over the last year, the change we have gone through. On top of that, you all were changing as a library district, and we wanted to make sure we could keep up. So there's 2 major things that we have done. The first one is to create a gala that is truly what I would call a fundraising event, and that happens in September. If y'all don't know, Bonnie Garmis is coming, who wrote Lessons in Chemistry, and if we haven't sold out, we're within 1 or 2 people close.
We just sold out plus 1 ticket today. You can't sell a couple.
So it's, we're at 351 people, that means, that will take place at our downtown library. And it should be a fun event. And some of the things we're thinking about should make it really fun. And I hope that that is something we can continue to grow upon. The second thing that we're doing that Chris and I have been doing a lot in the background is to really think about what the next level of fundraising is. And for those of you that might not know, in fundraising, you're always in the campaign. And that's what we're going to be doing. We're hopefully finishing up this library campaign, and the next one will be even bigger. So we've started down that path. We're getting ready to have a retreat at the end of August, and we'll be making some decisions about what that amount might look like. And then after the first one, which I think is gonna fall somewhere between 3 to 10 million, then the next one will be another probably $30 million campaign as we grow. I've raised over $100 million, so for me, I think that that's the right path that we should be on. Again, so that we can keep up with what you all are doing on the district side. Along that path, we are creating a new strategic plan that we'll be working on at the retreat. And we have several other things that Chris and I keep saying, oh, we have to think about that. Oh, we have to think about that. But at the end of the day, I think in 2 to 3 years, you're gonna see a foundation that is truly a professional foundation with strong roots. So, having said that, I would like to open this all up to questions from any of you, or if any of the other board of directors have comments, please feel free to speak up. Anything? It's just crickets.
Well, I'll start off. I'm really impressed by your leadership, and, you know, since I was on the board the year before you came on, and it was about part of the year, so I'm really impressed by where you guys have taken the organization in the last year. Thank you for Andy and Sylvia for being our representatives. Yeah, I'm excited because, and I want, as we work together, and, you know, for the staff, like, you know, for the ideas from what they can fund and what they can do, we need, you know, ideas from y'all, and in conversation with the community, most importantly. You know, what are their needs, what are their desires, what are the things they are looking for in this public space? I think we're like the only public space left, besides the parks outside, right? But like the indoor public spaces, you know? And so, and where can we enrich the community in arts, in education, and like, that's what I'm really hoping, like, in the next, as the board moves from like setting up branches and that kind of stuff to like long-term strategic planning. We're gonna talk about a lot of the art retreat this weekend. You know, where it is, you know, how we can get that to fit in to, because we're gonna run out of money fast, just to be honest, I think, you know what I mean? Once we start fixing these buildings and, you know, all of that, it's gonna go quick.
September 5th, September 5th, the library, the Canyon Theater is showing a documentary called Join or Die, which is about Robert Putnam, who wrote the book Bowling Alone, which is this whole concept of social capital. And it speaks to exactly what you're talking about, like what is the future of like knitting communities and societies back together? Where does it happen? Who does the work? How does it happen?
Is that part of our thing that we're going to? The democracy now? Or?
It's part of that program.
Yeah, so we'll have a table there, hopefully have some board members talking.
Yeah,
to-
we will too.
I should have mentioned in the last couple of years, as I've met my peers, our peers around the country at other library foundations, a theme that is just resounding and loud is the alignment is what matters the most when it comes to the success of a foundation in support of its library. And I feel really lucky to serve a foundation that works for a cause with such a strong staff culture. So even though we may be who you see around the table is basically us plus Lisa on our staff, the 100 and nearly 150 now, that's a really strong culture, and that and David is a really good communicator. So are all the senior staff, Tim and Jen on down. So getting that collaboration tighter and tighter is one of the key pathways to our success.
one of the learnings, I think, through the IGA process and sharing that with commissioners and council members, but particularly with commissioners, and I can recall a conversation with one that I shared with the board here, was just the lack of information, the lack of education and information about just the role of the foundation and the role of the board, and just how connected at the hip these two entities are and need to be. And it's there in our guiding documents, right? And it's represented now in terms of the relationship that exists, but it wasn't necessarily like known to the world out there. And so it just reminds me that there just needs to be ongoing communication about, what we're doing together, right? And the partnership that exists and why it's necessary. And we learned from, our legal counsel who, guides many districts, library districts, and, the structures of the foundations and districts, and they're working together and how they're structured. And we've had two strong entities and, in play for, decades, and to, sort of merge them in a sense into this new governance structure, has been something that I think we just need to educate people out there in an ongoing way so that they can see the connection there. And it's like, I've heard people say, why do you need the foundation if you have the district? Yeah, kind of thing. And so, it's important that people know that, right? And I don't know if you get challenged by that question, or, what do you hear? What kind of questions, or what?
I can only speak for myself. I'm guessing Chris and Kitty have additional feedback, but the most frequently asked question I get is, why do you need a foundation now if the library is fully funded? And so I think that the alignment that we have with the library is key in answering that question, because that gives us our top 3 talking points. Well, the library still can't pay for X, Y, and Z. Some of those things might be budget shortfalls, or some of those things might be like wish lists, like, well, libraries of the future, 5 years from now, are going to need X, Y, and Z, and we need to start thinking about that now. But I think the more informed we are as the foundation, the more coherently we can talk about those things, and in a way that is persuasive and convincing, so that people are willing to open their pocketbooks.
Yeah, and seconding that, I think the narrative is a really important component of this, and to the points Kitty was making, our next capital campaign is going to need to be framed around, like, why, what is it we're raising money for? And I think, from the foundation side, they can raise the money, but from the trustee side and David and staff side, it's well, what is that money for? Part of the narrative that we need to develop. So.
I'm gonna just give a true statement. Over the last 10 years,
They all are
just, what I mean is, I could offer an opinion right now about what we should say, but I'm just gonna tell you a fact. Over the last decade, the library side has struggled to have the staff bandwidth to receive funding from the foundation and make good use of it. That's been the irony, is that this desert was so parched that you couldn't water it. You've gone from desperate to adequate in a town that assumes it's better than that. The case for support is not hard to make.
And we're just at the tip of the iceberg from a programming perspective. I think, like, from a staff, like, they were just getting by, basically. I don't know, it seems like it, I don't want to speak for you, but it feels like just getting by with the funding you had, and then having to go through COVID and all that. Like, I think we're still trying to understand the impact of COVID on libraries and on all spaces, like, and I think we're part of the new, regime. So, like, we can help change the message, or not change the message, change the world, like, through our actions. I don't know.
And I don't know if I would put it as dire as you did a minute ago, we're gonna run out of money, but no, the salient point for me when I get asked, so you guys are rolling in dough now, right? I think the deferred maintenance backlog is so large, and there are different reasons we can get into for that, that's where any or most extra money is gonna go. So we still need the foundation to support our programs and innovations.
Well, we will spend in all likelihood around $54 million over the next 10 years on maintaining and fixing the backlog. That's a major chunk of change. It's like 22% of our budget, money that we never had. That it was, I think, presumed that we would just ride all these things into the ground like an old car and leave it on the side of the road when we were done. You know, now this kind of gives us the leg up to say, like, we're gonna be able to fix these buildings and take care of the assets, which in my mind, you know, have always been community assets. You kind of, the element of philanthropy is a huge part of it, but nobody did it to get their name on the building. They did it so that the community would have access to the library for a lifetime and for generations. And I feel that that responsibility heavily, that we have a duty to maintain these buildings and keep them alive and active. But that is, I mean, the board has asked, and we're gonna be going over some, like, what percentage of the budget is this? What percentage of the budget is this? And it's interesting to see that, like, a program like the outreach program, which is really in its early phases, first year, having huge impact, already hundreds of people showing up to job fairs, literacy programs, and, you know, it's like, it's less than 2% of our annual operating budget. This buildings, taking care of the buildings alone is more than 22, right? It's like the comparisons in terms of the scale of the money is one that I don't know that anybody, I mean, hopefully if you're a homeowner, you are thinking about when you replace your hot water heater and when the roof needs to be fixed, that kind of thing. But, you know, frankly, with government buildings, that's not a major concern. Like, you don't think about, like, if it breaks, we'll fix it. And I don't think we're in that position anymore. We can not only make them work, we can make them attractive and welcoming, right? Like, they can be a place where people go for that respite and the sense of social belonging, right? And that's a different equation. It's not simply books, it's not computers, it's a whole, you know, it's a whole complex chemistry, bringing that together so that everyone feels welcome and everyone can thrive in that space and be a part of something bigger. I know we all that work here, we all feel like every day we're part of something. We are, it's just so obvious inside. And, you know, I think we just need to impart that.
Okay, thank you. Not to be stickler on the time, but I try to keep, we're right on time, so minute over,
So can I
so.
just say that I hope we can do just more partnering and more collaboration and have just, you know, more conversation, right? And more integrations between these two bodies, right? And just the people that we are as volunteers doing this stuff together, right? We're on the same page here, just.
Well, hopefully, everyone's coming to the gala, and
Yeah.
so we'll have a good night of socializing and bring your wallets and I've given out all my tickets and said, I'm giving you the ticket, but you have to make a donation, so
Yeah,
hopefully I will get that, so, yeah, I agree.
yeah, but beyond the events, I mean, just to know that we're in this together, right? And so we do appreciate the energy and the commitment that you all have to this effort, and it matters, and it's important, so we very much appreciate it, and know that we're here with you.
Thanks for coming. If you guys want to stick around, we're gonna continue on with or we can take a break and or you can just leave, so anytime.
It's gonna be fascinating.
All right, our next. Our next item of business is, the incident report, so. You can see come with it. Yes.
So I will cover the incident reports. The report is in your, I know you guys have been asking this for some time. It is we hope to automate this in the future. It is a heavy manual lift. Thank you very much, Celia, Seaton, for going through all the different reports and putting together a report for you. I think what you can see from the report is that, you know, incidents in the library are slightly down, right? That is a good thing. I think there are probably pretty obvious reasons. We heavily invested in security for this year. And so, you know, there are security guards in all of our buildings, to the extent that now I've gotten a complaint from a customer that we have too much security, which is a first, but it's, you know, the number of, the pattern of incidents is pretty similar every year. They peak in summer and then go down and then rise back up in the winter months. That has a lot to do with part of the social infrastructure of libraries, that we provide a cooling place in the hot months of summer and a warming place in the cold months of winter. We've also, the length of suspensions has taken a turn upward. And that is primarily due to the Halo system, the monitoring system that we've put in the bathrooms. So we currently, if anyone is vaping any substance, it doesn't matter if it's marijuana, if it's tobacco, if it's illegal drugs, if it's just a health aid, if you're vaping in the bathroom, you get a 364-day suspension. We're sticking to that rule right now for the reasons that it's clean and easy to enforce with the guards, beginning to make decisions based upon what a person is vaping or what the appearance of a person is or how contrite they are, could very easily lead to, you know, accusations or assumptions about discrimination, which we're not really going to do. My hope is that over the course of time, we do reduce that number of suspensions, but that will occur as we see a significant decrease in the number of people who are going to the bathrooms to vape. And right now it's, I don't know, I think we haven't had one for a couple of weeks, but for a while there, initially it was 1 or 2 a week, then it dropped to about 1 a week, and now I'm not sure when the last one was we had.
Yeah, it's been I think maybe 1 this week, but it's definitely down.
So they're trending downwards. I think word is getting out. We have signs posted, you know, no vaping. It's obvious to me that it's not a legal activity. My rationale is, why are they going to be hiding in the bathroom if they thought it was a permitted activity? And so it's not a surprise to them typically when people are vaping, and most of them gladly leave. At present, I don't know. We've had a number of people say they were going to appeal the suspension, which we would have been glad to have done. Tim and I here on the appeals, we've not had an appeal on that vaping issue yet. And I don't think any questions about incident report that you ever have.
Can I just ask you, just as it relates to like a suspension or that action, does it happen, it happens in real time and somebody's like escorted out, and do they get like some piece of paper that says you're suspended? And
Yeah, you do. So you get a piece of paper that is a signed incident report, alerting you to your suspension and the length of time. It also details for you how you appeal that process if you want. Our appeal process changed, if you remember. We used to go through the courts. So the appeal process went to the courts and was heard by a judge. That was a process that the city chose for us to follow. And for the city, we could not suspend anyone for longer than 364 days unless it was a crime of a sexual nature. And so that almost never occurred. And when it did occur, it was in my best interest to work with the district attorney and the prosecutor's office to see if we could get a sentence, a suspension from the library consecutive, whatever sentence they got in the courts. And that worked for a little while on a couple of incidents that held up. You know, the courts have changed because of problems with jails and COVID and a lot of other things. That I found that process was not a very conducive one in the course of the pandemic, where, as you know, a staff member was attacked while on shift without provocation and without warning. She spent more time out of work with the effects of that attack than the person was sentenced in trial. And so that's not, I don't have a particular opinion on that. That's just the way in which it works right now. The courts are not giving out long sentences or harsh sentences, even for violent crimes. And so, yeah, so now the suspension is totally up to us. We issue it immediately. We have not issued any suspensions beyond 364 days, although we do have a person with history of sexual crimes and 2 incidents in the library who we've not lifted their suspension, and it's gone on longer than 364 days. And I don't I don't know that we will ever get that suspension while I'm here. Once I'm dead or retired, you guys can revisit that case, but we have no intention of allowing it back.
Do we have to, are those suspension forms in Spanish and English, or are they just in English?
It's just in English.
It's just in English.
Does the law or does anything require them to be in English and Spanish?
The rules are in English,
But not the form itself?
the form itself is not, it's in English. And it's basically just, information on the length of the top and then, you know, or will check mark the rules that are violated, and they'll provide some description of periods. And, the description of the incident is kept in our files. We just give the suspension form and rules marked to the individual.
Has anyone ever claimed or had issues with it not being in Spanish?
There's issues with what, Anita?
With it not being, I mean, with being able to read English?
No, not that I'm aware of.
What's the enforcement mechanism once, I mean, so like, is this, once they're suspended, is it just the security guards and the binder?
Yeah,
It's back shop?
And the staff are also aware of most of the situations because they're public events, right? And so the staff usually alert security in most cases, somebody is aware of that person's presence in the library. Security then notifies the person that they're suspended and they can't return. It's, in the case where we have to notify police. So the person refuses to leave. In that case, we notify the police. Most incidents do not rise to that level. I don't know, we've had a couple over the course of a decade where people returning after having under suspension refuse to leave. Usually there is other extenuating circumstances, either mental health or addiction issues that prevent them from understanding, and then usually police escort them out of the building and inform them that they're not. Our suspensions include all buildings. You can be suspended from here, and that means you cannot use any of the services in the libraries for whatever that legal suspension is. Typically, the guards give a warning. Most of the infractions are small ones. We do not write up incident reports for infractions where the guard says, "I need you to stop that." And I need you to leave for today. And most of them comply with that. The people who then raise either the pension level, resist complying with the instructions to either quiet down or stop bathing in the sink in the bathroom or whatever happens to be, those can lead to suspensions, beginning from 7 days to 30 days to, if it gets out of control. That's pretty rare.
So I'm looking at this chart here. Sam and I think maybe
I think I got it.
you got it, yeah. So just looking, you've got there's total incident 70, but like if I go to rules cited in incident reports #1, there's, I think it's like incidents 22, but then there's 94 of them, right?
Mine's worse in total, and, the numbers like say 30 under 32, 30 days.
Oh, okay, so,
That's the number of 30-day suspensions, so there are
And then
30
20
day suspensions that violated rule number 1.
right,
And
But-
some suspensions violate more than one rule, so there'll be more.
oh, okay. So they might check.
Yeah.
Nice, okay, now I understand.
That first one seems like that's sort of a catch-all for anything that doesn't come under the other ones.
It's up to the people, yeah.
Yeah, this is the most applicable rule. The teenagers had, when we initially rewrote all the policies, I thought they put it very succinctly, it was like, behave as if it's your place, but not only your place. And that's kind of the rule. Like you are welcome to be in this space in the manner that you choose, but also acknowledging it's not, you don't pull it off. Like you're not the only person here. And so long as people behave in that way, most anything passes. We're not overly concerned about any one measure. We have been over the past year extraordinarily protective of the bathrooms. That is a result of a public promise that we made to do everything within our power to prevent an incident like occurred almost a year, 18 months ago, 19 months ago, from ever happening again. So that has been, you know, we enforced the rules pretty heavily there. We had guards in there for almost, what, 9 months, 8 months. Now the guards are not actually stationed in there, but we have an alert system that advises us of, you know, excessive movement, vaping, displacement of carbon, you know, all kinds of different things that we can use there to identify exactly which stall it's coming from and ask to intervene, and if people are vaping or using, smoking, any of that kind of stuff. It's also a protective device, the monitoring device. If there's a lack of motion, we would also get a notice. So if somebody were to have an incident in the bathroom and be immobile, it would give us a notification. So that has not happened.
Have any of the triggers in the bathroom, like the person said, I'm not, like, I didn't smoke, or I don't.
No one is.
Into it.
You know, yeah, I mean, this is a public meeting, so they can watch it if they choose. They can all easily come out, deny anything and say, no, you can't. But, you know, our standard practice was, you know, asking, you know, we have an alert that you are vaping or smoking in the bathroom. Are you doing that? And like, it has been the case that every single person has not only admitted it, but they've showed us their vape, what they were vaping and everything. And that's, we're not asking for any of that. We cannot ask. And yet everybody sort of volunteers their information. And it's kind of been across the spectrum, right? So admittedly, there have been probably a high number of unhoused individuals, but there have been people who work in the neighborhood. There have been people who, one person was working for a city event. There have been parents of small children, and I guess they just decide, like, I'm gonna go in the bathroom and light up for a minute or whatever it is you do. And now the alarm, the reporting system is indicating this. Yeah, I mean, it's, I was pretty intolerant at first. I felt like, if you don't know you can't smoke in a building now in the 21st century, like, you've been living under a rock for 30 years. And then I realized, well, it is people who are probably have addiction issues and or other addiction or mental health issues, can't really help themselves, but then that's not a case for necessarily leniency in my mind, because there is a kind of deliberate unawareness or willingness, I guess, whether conscious or not, to contaminate the air in a public space, not 12 feet away from a children's room. And I have virtually no tolerance for anybody who's willing to do that. We'll stick with 364 for a while. I mean, Tim and I have already talked about it. The staff would like to see a softer sentence. I think we're not there yet.
And then, like, your sense of how often police have been called into the library, let's say that on here anywhere, or we mark that down, or?
There were 47 calls to emergency services over 2023.
Okay.
That doesn't necessarily mean there were suspension related issues. Sometimes it's like
Okay,
somebody has a health episode and they need help.
Yeah. Okay.
Like we said, it's not frequent that we have to call the police to get somebody to the library. It's
The incidence of criminal activity in the civic area around the library has gone up.
Right.
And our incidents have gone down. So I feel really good about that. I mean, that is a nice milestone. I don't feel great about the fact that crime in the area has gone up. The city does a kind of stratified policing now. City of Boulder, for the past 2 or 3 years, they do stratified policing. The area around the library is one of the high priority zones right now. We have a sergeant who is assigned to that area. It is his detail. He is responsible for tracking all of the different types of crime, where that crime is occurring. Police are analyzing all that data. I meet with them somewhat regularly to go over incidents outside. What, if anything, we can do.
So
Our number of incidents inside the library, and certainly criminal incidents inside the library, since 2 years ago have gone down.
So one issue though I have is, like, I think that they track it, the police, and I don't know if we can ask them to change it, but like, instead of calling it, they always call it, there's an incident at the library.
No, that's.
You know, and so then it's like, looks like there's an incident at the library, when it's really in the civic center, civic area.
Yeah, I have talked with them about that, and I met with their data analyst, and he changed the language actually in their reporting. So you may be thinking of the gentleman who brought data to the city council meeting at one point.
No, I'm talking about like, well, when I was, when we had a meeting a few weeks ago, there was an incident under the library or something with someone with a BB gun or something. And they were like, there's an incident at the library, and I'm like, it's not at the library's closed, it's at the civic area. Yeah.
It's an important distinction. I think they've changed the language somewhat in their data collection so that it shows the area around the library, its vicinity in the library.
Yeah.
And doesn't call out necessarily at the library, but I mean, I'm sure that practice of saying at the library, to at the library is not gonna change because the PD, that's where they park their cars, like, that's where they arrive. That's where they embark upon investigating whatever is going on in this.
I don't know if it helps make people feel safer either, so, yeah. Okay.
All the rules you have in here seem to be more or less linked to, you know, physical activity that occurs on the premise. Have we had any issues with like digital harassment or things in online events or suspensions that arise from not physically located activity?
We have in the past, I can't think of anyone recently, we've had,
2020 was a lot of fun.
so we've had, harassment via the phone and or digitally. It is covered in our policies that you've approved, that it's not acceptable to harass or anything like that, both in any form of communication. And so the staff are aware that people can be suspended from having their library just suspended indefinitely, depending upon how they interact with the phone. It's not something we've experienced. You know, the Ask a Librarian service grew profoundly during the pandemic and still is kind of staying there. So another one of these changes in user behavior, and it was a very underutilized service in the beginning, but it's not totally ridiculous to assume that we'll start to receive some level of harassment.
Well, I would just assume too, if we have more online events and stuff like that, it's a venue where we will see misbehavior.
Okay, well, any more questions about this before we move on to our next topic? Which I believe is policy.
The first one is not actually a policy, but it was the practice of the library commission to review this set of guidelines periodically, just because it's giving guidelines to the community, which is donating materials to the library. So Kate Kelch, the community, the literacy and outreach department manager, and Sophia Siraj, the volunteer services manager. Sophia is the one who oversees the book donations and book sales, and largely that's all a function of volunteers giving their time to sort the books and sell the books. So they reviewed this policy or these set of guidelines, and then also the leadership team reviewed them at their last meeting, and there were no changes that staff recommends, but they're here for you to ask questions if you have any questions or any input that could help make them clearer to people.
I'm assuming there's an error because mass market is listed as what you accept and what you don't. I'm assuming that the third bullet point at the top say training. Because at the bottom, one of the bullet points says you don't, and we don't accept.
The top is less than 5 years old, the bottom is more than 5 years old.
Okay.
Yes.
But maybe we can add trade.
Yeah, because that is confusing. And then I would just suggest the description by the photo is kind of, I don't know, it would just maybe be simpler to just put the photo and then have labels. Trade arrow, mass market arrow, because otherwise you're going on the left, on the right.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is why my daughter's book for school fell apart. It's what we see in the, whatever they have to read for freshman year, and it literally just fell apart. Must be a mass market book.
Having small iPad with print. Printing is degenerating significantly,
Yeah.
and they all are using glue, right? So
Yeah.
there's not so
Okay.
books anymore, yeah, anyone can fall apart.
To do all the things that, I'm fine with the policy, but do all the things that we donate, do some of them go back into circulation, like, or it all gets either sold or
Except,
doing that?
yeah,
Yeah.
entering things because of the cost. A lot of the books that we purchase for circulation are pre-processed, are pre-cataloged for us, so we're not doing that work, and if we used donations, we'd have all of that manual labor. And it's just, it's hard to keep up with, it's hard to like, make sure you have an exact match to the record. Of the books that are donated. It's a very occasional instance where the collection, the director of collection development will accept the donation, like if it's something really rare, but we really want it, it's something popular, we might include it, but it's not common.
Typically, we have, like a party, we do circulate them in some ways, so we do regularly supply the Age Well Center, we're not necessarily supplying the day shelter, we provide a couple other, group homes with those. So those books just go out and then they do circulate, I mean, but not at the library circulation, we're not counting them.
Interesting.
We're distributing to libraries, around places in need or where a person is.
People after that, so sometimes it's a good answer that I can give them.
Should we maybe add a pointer here to the fact that Carnegie has its own policies for this sort of, I mean, like, because there are, like, if someone is donating something in store with notes to Carnegie, like, that's not under this policy. That's what we do with Carnegie.
Yeah, we do
I don't know
that.
if Carnegie even has a written policy on what they accept.
It does,
Yeah,
yeah.
it might be good just to put a pointer to that, so folks don't confuse it.
Jen,
This applies specifically to just,
PG will take any records that show up. The libraries,
Oh, okay.
they have an annual record sale, so
Nice. When is it?
it's actually at the end of August and then the first week of September, they have 2 days.
One's here and one's down in Denver.
That's right, one is the Boulder studio, one is in
How many vinyl records do you get? We used to get them frequently, kind of, we went out of popularity for a while. Yeah, they are.
Yeah, start selling CDs, man. It's got like somebody's like enormous. This week, it's like thousands.
I looked at the CD section in the used area and I found some really great out of print jazz
Oh my God.
for like $1.
Yeah. It's just
So for you bargain hunters.
yeah, exactly.
I think we should raise the price.
Somebody just made me a mixed tape CD, they're like, because no, we're not gonna own our music anymore, so they gave it to me. And Andrew Brandt did that, you know. So I should have said that on.
Like, it's like climate talk.
Okay, so do you understand the changes?
can I just add? I want to say we have a financial donor who asked me about materials donations last week. It is so useful to be able to read him this policy where it says no to his VHS tape. Donation, all that, it's just very helpful. Second, this is what Doris Haas spent the last century, a lot of her volunteer time in the basement. Thank God the library is doing this and not the foundation. Thank you. That's a function some friends groups do. We don't want anything to do with it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I just wanna-
Actually volunteers to do it.
And I want to compliment Sophia and everybody from library staff side who's involved in this, because every time we have that morning huddle and it's over there in the paper and spine bookstore, like, it is so cool to see how quickly that stuff turns over. People take advantage of that. And there's always some kind of bestseller on there, you know, that I recognize. I mean, it's fresh. It's really great, well-run operation.
We get a lot of inventory, it's.
We can keep the
whenever
price
it's
shit
out.
low.
Library's free and open all, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, like, I'm a major donations guy, right? Yeah, I'd rather focus on my donors, you know, let this maybe be a public service,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah. Right.
is that, I'm just thinking about that as related to our budget, and it relates to the question Sam asked, I think, at the last meeting about the $97 in cash that came in. Would that have been like people buying, books and whatever? No?
That's a donation.
Okay.
It's under other revenue. And book sales in the past have typically generated about $30,000 a year. They think they're gonna probably more than double that this year, just because there are less constraints now that we're a district. In the past, we had to ask for that money to be appropriated back to the library in order to use it, and use it to purchase materials and also to fund all of the materials that you need to like recycle of things that we can't use, and send books that we get such a volume that we even send books, big bins of books off to an online bookseller who also sells them and we get part of those proceeds. So it's not, you know, what you see in the bookstore is just a fraction of what we get.
30,000 a year.
Okay.
We don't know. I don't know. We could probably try, they were asking questions about things. We tend to usher people towards the foundation for donations, but people are constantly like rounding up and
Yes,
Here's-
and the fountain, they put coins in the fountain. That's where those go. So that line item, yeah, okay.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we approve the materials donation guidelines.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of approving the material? Okay. Any opposed? No, okay.
Public comments here tonight to go over the approval of the agreement and John policies. Take it away, Tim.
Talking about so important policy, but luckily one that can be up super often, kind of comes up to two instances, like when we discovered an unattended child in the library who appears to be lost. That happens often, as you can imagine, after story time, people are running around, play and everything, people replace one of their kids. So we have a process, a procedure to kind of quickly relocate the parent and that, but this policy would be important to fall back on if we weren't able to find the parent, or if they were left in the building at closing, that sort of thing. It could also be if a child is found to be disruptive, breaking into our rules, our policies, and we weren't. So didn't make any substantial changes to the policy. Wanted your feedback if there's anything that we should consider.
I'm sending you.
Oh, I said thanks for adding me off.
I wondered if we, in any place, have to, if there's any need to define age.
We're really leaving it up to the parent to decide if their child is responsible enough to do that. So leaving it up to them as opposed to setting an age limit.
Somebody, that was really in response to clarification around us ever acting in local parentis, which we do not. So the policy, I think it used to say children under the age of 13. We removed that age restriction because really it is for parent to determine what activity any child under the age of consent is doing within the library, or if they are taking their activities. We don't go there on purpose because it's the parent's decision.
That's where I guess I'd seen it, yeah. Okay.
As a parent who's lost a child in the library,
In a
I think they
grocery
had to like shut the whole place down, and like she locked herself in the bathroom once, hated, and was stuck in the children's bathroom. I have a sprinter of a child. Appreciate it.
This reminds me of my favorite t-shirt. There's little boy must have been like 12-ish, sitting on the bench in front of the main entrance last 2 summers ago. Favorite t-shirt ever. In my defense, I was left unattended. He's just quietly reading, waiting for his ride.
Okay, any more comments on the unattended children policy.
I will say that we've had virtually no incidents in 10 years, which is, again, another thing about Boulder, which is very different than every other library I've ever worked in. I think every other library Tim's worked in, it's quite frequently an issue and could be a daily issue. It's not an issue here.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the unattended children's policy.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? No. Okay. And now we are, Ken, if you want to take off, well, maybe you don't stay. Thank you for coming. Director updates.
Yeah, so director's updates, since Carnegie came up 4 times tonight, 5 times maybe tonight, we have hired a manager at Carnegie. We will be announcing a general opening timeframe in the coming weeks. We were looking at probably end of September. We'll be reopening to the public probably around, I don't know exactly what hours or even what days yet. They will open a weekend day, I think Saturday. And probably we're going to start out, we're going to keep appointments because that's been very successful. And really the most effective use of the archivist time. But we will have open hours to the public, probably 20, 25 hours a week. So that's going to be exciting. One of the next things coming down the pike, you'll see a Carnegie's opening. We'll probably have a big party on the day that we do it. And we're going to do a few refreshes in the space so that it looks slightly different. Doug and Benita asked me to walk through a little bit more about my retreat tonight. I will be sending you out an agenda and a packet, or at least part of the packet, probably tomorrow. Celia and I are working on it. We don't have a high-tech solution. We're meeting at the Gun Barrel, the new Gun Barrel Library out in Gun Barrel. I will bring handouts for everyone if you need them, but if you have a device that you want to bring, we don't have an wireless setup there. I have not had problems on my phone getting internet access, so I don't think you will if you want to use that, but rest assured we'll bring printouts of everything, including the PowerPoint presentation that we've developed for you to see. But I want to walk through the day a little bit just to give you a preview, and I think Doug and has requested so that you guys can have a little bit of time in advance time to think about some of the issues. And so the day will begin with a tour of the space. We meet there at 9. We're going to tour the space, probably take 30 minutes. It's a big unfinished bank, but it's a nice opportunity for us to see, for you all to see like what we're going to be developing there and what possibilities lie within the building. It's pretty great space for that. We haven't done anything special for you. I think we did take a folding table out there. There were a couple already there. We had, I think, 10 or 12 chairs. So we're going to make do with what we have. After we do the tour, we're going to do, you guys have your call to order, and we'll do a preview of the presentation that we're going to be doing for the county commissioners at the end of August, August 29th, I believe it is, and then also for city council on September 19th. So it'll be an opportunity for you guys to provide feedback. The presentation is kind of as we've discussed. It goes through an introduction by Doug. We talk about some of the things that we've done in this last year, opening NOVO, launching the outreach program, a number of things like that. Then we'll go through the 24 budget, talk briefly with the boards about things we plan on doing the next year. And then the county commissioners have been very forward, thank you to them, about what kind of things they'd like to hear about. They primarily want to hear us focus on some of the equity work that we've done. And so in that context, Kate Kelsch will come out to talk about the outreach program, literacy and outreach program, Boulder Reads, and a number of programs like that. And then Libby will reprise the presentation that she did for you a month or so ago on our hiring practices over the past 6 months as well. And so that will be essentially the presentation. There's an opportunity in your meetings, both with city council and with the county commissioners, for about 40 minutes of just talking, so questions and answers. So you might think in that context, what things you might want to do in that thing, and we'll have an opportunity to add more slides should you want to before we actually turn the presentations over. From there, we're going to go to a 2025 budget preview. So you guys will get a kind of a sneak peek at the budget, which we plan to bring back to you for first reading at the end of September or early October. But I want you to have an inkling about what things we're thinking about so that September, October isn't a huge surprise. And it's also an opportunity for you to provide some feedback on what things we might consider in terms of refining that budget for 2025. A lot of it, it's a modest proposal, which I'm pleased about, like the staff did some heavy consideration, I think, in terms of just how busy we have been. They're not planning for the launching of any new programs other than gun barrel and all the other things that we're doing that are coming online. There's not a whole lot of new things. It is filling out some of the gaps that we've recognized in the time of time, and further expansion of the outreach, which, as I said, over the first 4, 5, 6 months has been doing very well, and we plan to roll out some programs that are predominantly in Spanish language. So then we'll break for lunch. We do briefly talk about in the presentation, some of the stuff that you guys have shown interest in that context of like, what does it cost to do these things? If we're interested in doing X, what does that cost? And they are all, pretty small in comparison to what I was saying earlier, the cost of maintaining our buildings, which is a major consideration. From that point, after lunch, we will get into the planning process, touch briefly on the stuff that we've done with the current master plan. And those things you all pretty much know. We'll be covering them in the presentations to council and the county commissioners as well. So I'm not sure how much time we'll spend on that. But then we'll spend the bulk of the afternoon digging down on the strategy going forward. And so basically it kind of breaks down in a fairly straightforward way. I will present like a 10-year financial picture. So you have a sense of wherein what money is coming and what money is going. And so it's generally, and then the cost of various services and when things come online. The short answer is we are adequately funded. I think even in a case of the most heinous, the most restrictive, most drastic tax reduction measures that are being proposed now, citizens initiatives, and I don't even know which ones made it through today, but I think there's at least one to redo assessment rates permanently and to cap taxes at 4%. So I've modeled something that's slightly less than that, so you can see where we are financially, should something like that pass through, but then also more modestly looked at what the historical averages are in terms of property tax assessments and property values in Boulder over the course of 50 years, and factor that average in over 4 years, which puts us in I think, good shape. And that's well within the proposal that became law this year, signature of Senate Bill 233. So we'll do that, and then we'll talk briefly about having a more concise time frame for planning around services. So programs and services, that will be more of a 1 to 3 year kind of time frame that we're looking out on that, and I think we're welcoming ideas, some thoughts, some stuff that came up tonight about how we change spaces to more accommodate community gathering. I do have a preamble to your packet, which is I wrote today. I've been thinking about it quite a lot, so it's 6 pages. I hope you'll bear with me. It's just it's kind of like a change of really user behavior in libraries, predominantly over the last 3 years, but what accelerated significantly during the pandemic, and what we're kind of really just in the midst of unpacking now is like, what is and there have been major shifts, right? There have been major shifts in terms of the manner in which library users use the library just in the time during the pandemic. And so we'll look at some of those things and what the impact is in terms of how we plan for services. In addition to that, several other things that I want to go over in terms of the planning is, some focus areas, and those primarily around the kind of things that we talked about in last retreat, around bricks, what we call bricks and clicks, which is a lot more subtle than that. But it's like we have physical buildings, we're moving physical materials, and then we also have this massively expanding digital virtual presence, which is not simply digital books and ebooks, but really wireless provision, hotspots, and technology that goes out to the community. So we're going to frame it really kind of the long-term strategy around buildings, around growth in the digital presence, how library usage has affected maybe some changes about how we would think about design of our interior buildings. And then lastly, the degree to which safety has impacted the perceived, real and perceived safety issues that have impacted how the public sees the library, and what, if any, impact that's had on library usage as well. And to that end, it's not a major thing. I'm not asking you to take a position on encampments. I don't even think that's advisable. I don't think, city council doesn't have any uniformity on it. I doubt that you do as well either. And so it's really a matter of, are we willing to consider some small investments that may alter things outside, which I'm really just looking for kind of a go ahead for, so that we can begin the investigation. Because until you say, yeah, we're kind of interested in maybe having an impact or taking a more of an active role in outside of our building, that's not a responsibility currently within the IGA. But the way it's configured now, it is a source of a sense of safety of the staff, and presumably one of the public. I believe it is a major concern of the public. And then just so can we take some modest steps to begin to address some of the things out there which would require me to go do the work with the city or with the IGA, with about 4 or 5 different departments to see what appetite there is in the city for us to make this. And that's kind of the gist of the retreat. Do you guys have any questions about what to expect for the day? I'll be bringing donuts or something for breakfast, but if somebody has something else, anybody has any, we need to figure this. Celine and I are meeting tomorrow. See, we'll figure all that stuff out.
Snarks.
Snarks for lunch, yeah.
Yeah, I send that,
I
yes.
still need most of you guys to send in your choices.
Yeah, send your lunch, I'll send a reminder.
Yeah, make sure you send your lunch order.
Celia sends.
Is there air conditioning?
There is, yeah. So the building is, building's functioning. There's working bathrooms, there's running water, there's.
Just no Wi-Fi.
There's air conditioning. We don't have our technology set up there yet. So we have, there's no Wi-Fi, and we don't have network. It's just basically a big empty building. You can see in the closets and
So
where.
Sylvia might be calling in, so we can just patch her through my phone or whatever.
Yeah.
Does it sound like that? We can get our hands on that spot.
Maybe a hotspot.
We'll figure it out. We'll get you.
I don't think we're relying on it. I spoke to Sylvia in advance.
Okay.
I'm more than willing to meet with Sylvia to catch up on things, and the packet will cover a lot of the material, and if there are questions, I mean, the budget stuff, we'll have a real meeting on in September, October. Some of the things that are really just looking about testing the waters about your appetite for, are really to begin the investigative work. I can't imagine that they're going to translate into even budget items for right now, but if they do, we would obviously bring them to you for decision on them. So it's kind of like to get a lay of the land and honestly have some hard discussions. The buildings one is the big one. It is like I said, it's 22% of the budget. It looks like about $54 million over the course of the next 10 years. And that's to catch up. And that doesn't even necessarily get us all the way there. But you'll see pretty quickly that our money is spent or can be easy. And the room for us to embark there, but there is room for us to embark on well thought out plans for the changing behaviors of library users. There's more than enough opportunity for us to think about, like, what do we do with Meadows? The Meadows library is a major concern. Like, the lease is up in now 5 years. We have to be out there or renegotiate lease. And so that is our busiest community outside of Maine. It is the largest community outside of Maine. It is the most diverse community, anywhere in Boulder. So there, we need to do something there. And so I want to get that on your radar because it's probably a decision that we'll be making in the next 2 to 3 years and understanding the cost associated with it. Carnegie is another major endeavor. Like it grades out as a D when the assessments were done of the buildings. It is in very bad shape. It has not been taken care of. It is a historical treasure in some people's minds, and other people's minds, I'm sure they think, like, just close it up and turn it into a condo. And so we need to have that discussion. I mean, I think I don't want to be dismissive of either one of those ideas, but it will cost money if we choose to stay there and fix it up. I'm sure you'll hear in the tones from me that I think that's the right thing to do, but I certainly want to hear what your all's ideas are for it as well, because it is it's a major it's not an incidental expense, right? Preserving the history of the community doesn't necessarily draw visitors. It doesn't raise donations. It is a service that we provide that I believe many in the community have a real expectation that someone is doing it. And that someone, guess what? It's us right now. I don't think we can neglect that responsibility. How we choose to do it is going to be pretty critical. And that's it for me.
And that was, yeah. Great.
If there's water and that.
Yeah, running water, bathrooms. Yeah, I mean, one of the other here, you'll get to see the layout. The buildings are actually remarkably good shape.
It's a good change.
So I don't know, but I think somebody goes out there. So the building was redone in 2015. It's a nice building. It has a nice break room. We'll be in the main room, which is a big room. The same
It's like one big room.
Yeah. And it's basically the size of what we have downstairs. And so you'll get to be in chairs. And we have chairs, ergonomic chairs, a folding table. I think they're ergonomic, I'm making that up. But, yeah, it'll be a low-tech endeavor, but hopefully that'll enable us to attention on having some good discussions around a lot of things that are pretty important for us to be in agreement on as we move. Or at least have a tentative idea where we all stand.
So it was my bank and the acoustics are good.
Acoustics are way better than here, I guarantee you.
Well, we'll
Just
see.
saying.
We'll get this. Okay. So, are you done, Dave? So we're on to trustee matters. So we have 3 things. I'll open up the floor. I don't know if you guys saw the email about the people engaged in raising leaders. That's the City of Boulder program. County program, okay. And they're asked us to, we wanted to have anybody come talk. I've already put together a presentation about what it's like to be a trustee or, what to expect. I think this is for, this is a program that they use to sort of recruit diverse people onto boards and commissions. And so, yeah, I guess they have several participants. I told them we would send someone. I'm happy to go. It's September 28th. I didn't say a time, I just looked, but I'm sure it's like an hour or so of commitment. Anyone have a strong feeling that they want to go and do this, or we can send 2 people? The 28th. I'll do it. I'll volunteer. Sylvia or?
Right, I don't think I'm down that day.
Okay.
I'm coming back that day.
I've done it in the past.
Okay.
If you need backup, I have
Okay.
no interest in, but if you get sick or something,
Okay.
We need a backup.
And we needed Sam and Medina back up. Okay. Okay, so that's me, and then the next thing is, well, then let's move this other one. On September 19th.
So the branches don't have a 7 o'clock, we're closing.
Neither does Maine anymore. So you'll be pleased to know that we no longer have that here.
Wasn't that Tim's voice or?
It was Tim's voice. I love telling the story every single time he came on. The story got old.
Okay.
Cause I just noticed it's like 7:50.
Yeah, so September 19th, we will have a joint dinner, which is a Thursday. From 5 to 6. This is in the email I sent you guys. With the city council at this municipal building, correct?
Yeah, council chambers.
Council chambers. So at the dinner before the regular meeting, we'll give that quick presentation and, chat with the council people. So I guess just let me know if you can't make it. No.
I'm in South Dakota.
Okay. That's okay. You've done enough. Yeah. Done it. You worked your rear off for the district. I'm not. It's at 5 o'clock.
In council chambers.
Council chambers, they said.
Yeah, they have dinner and then they mainly just want to know numbers. And they have not said, we asked them if they had things they wanted us specifically to talk about. They haven't.
Okay, and, we could think of some stuff. And then, so we have a regular meeting scheduled for the 20th. And a special meeting scheduled for the 3rd of September. And I would like to propose that we cancel those two meetings. Just because we have the retreat this weekend. And then September 5th, hopefully we'll have some volunteers. I'll send out an email, get some volunteers to go to that democracy thing, the film that they were talking about. Cable at that event.
Have you sent out info on that?
What's that?
So have you sent out info on that?
Not yet, not on that one. It blanked my mind and
September 5th.
September 5th.
So that's the Calcon. Is happening.
Oh, it is, okay. So we'll have to, okay. Well, I was supposed to be there. I think it's 5th, so we'll figure it out. I might come back early. Yeah, but if it's in the evening, I might come back early and we'll
Maybe
figure it
it's
out.
on that evening.
Yeah, I would encourage you to look at that entire series this fall. This is an example of pivoted, and they put together an exciting and creative and diverse bunch of events that are like really all over that, but intended precisely in building community and exciting democratic participation. It's not political, it's fun, it's funny, it's serious, it's all these things, but it's pretty cool. The whole program was over. It's like 12 or 13 programs over the course of 2 months.
You're not talking about Calcon, you're talking about this thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyone have any, David, it's probably, we talked about it, we can move this stuff to the other September meeting and we'll have enough to, and we have a bunch of other stuff, so I think.
So when would the next meeting be?
So you don't,
The next meeting,
it seems like a long time.
it would be, well, we're technically meeting Sunday. And then the next meeting would be the 17th.
Of September.
I think.
Okay.
It is quite a bit of time, but we looked at kind of what we have to cover. We moved some of it up this meeting. And then, we'll put the other back to the 17th.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, before the end of the year, we get on pace for once. Meetings might be slightly longer, but it's a less position. Here's the heavy work we did last year where we met every week. And then every other week, and sometimes 3 times a month. I think those days are done. We'll see what happens in October with the budget. Yeah, I think things can be reasonable.
Yeah, I might have to be a little bit longer. So, is that sound acceptable? Sylvia, are you okay with that?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you okay with that if we?
What?
Just the move.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it'll be.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
So I tried to, the schedule is now such that we'll either have a meeting first Tuesday or the 3rd Tuesday of the month. Barring anything like. Okay, so Kim, do we have to take a vote we don't have to take a vote to get rid of those meetings, do we?
You do not, but just remove them from the posting.
Yeah, just remove. Okay, that's about the last thing I had. Anyone else have any trustee matters that they would like to?
I just kudos to the theater staff. I went to the open house. They were great, enthusiastic, really helpful in explaining what they're doing. Or to take things down.
Okay, Ken, any updates from legal counsel?
Wait, I want to show you my work of art. So I just wanted to show you my little crafty thing that I made at the
Studio 24.
at Studio 24 at our opening event. Yes.
Great.
So there you go. Very cool.
Yeah, the programs actually went to one the other day, so that's pretty cool.
Okay. You go legal.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Go ahead, Tim.
Nothing from me. I just wanted to comment though that the room looks great and it sounds great and it's great. It's all that technology, whatever you're using there is working really well.
Great. Okay.
But somebody thinks it sounds great.
Yeah. You should join me in there.
Maybe
Alright.
better the further away you are.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So I think it's that one.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah. They do have two though. With that, we'll adjourn the meeting and we'll see you again on Sunday.
Sunday at 9 a.m.
9 a.m.
Okay.
Yes.